Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get settled up here and give everybody a second to join. We have Mehmet, Bill, and Dan on my panel today. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hi, let me get situated here. I see everybody joining, so let's give them a second.
Sure.
Awesome. All right, I think we can get started. Welcome, everybody, to our panel. Today, we're going to talk about the role of blockchain in Web3, specifically in content licensing and rights management. You know, today's digital age, the way that we create, distribute, and consume content is undergoing a big transformation. So we've gathered experts today from Rewarded TV, Aggero, rlaxx TV to explain how blockchain, Web3 technologies, and AI technology are reshaping the landscape for content licensing, but more broadly, OTT in general. There's so many use cases for Web3 and blockchain technology, and I believe we're only scratching the surface. So today, while we'll start with some specific examples, our goal is to broaden the conversation. For those who may not be as familiar with this space and are curious, we want to demystify some of this technology and help you feel empowered and curious on how you can apply it into your business, your project. So let's jump in. I have a quick, simple, very easy poll to ask everybody. Let me click here. I'm going to launch it. It's just a simple one. Have you used Web3 technology either personally or professionally? So I'm just curious to get a little bit of a temperature, and forgive me those, I know who you are watching in a lobby. You're not voting, but thanks for tuning in today. Cool. So it looks like about half, it sounds like, of those who are willing to vote right now, a little bit more half. So that's really promising, which means you're somewhat familiar. We are going to keep it really simple today because I've found even almost 2 years into this space, I'm always learning. So even when we go back to the basics, it's great for anyone. Cool. So let's start with some introductions. I'll start with, I'm moderating today's panel. My name is Andrea Berry. I'm head of business development at Theta Network. We are what's called a layer one proof of stake blockchain company. Proof of stake tends to mean a more green and eco-friendly and cost-effective blockchain. It's better for media and entertainment because it's less gas fees, and gas fees are usually incurring when there's interactions on the blockchains, or what we call transactions. And so with media and entertainment, really important we have as much engagement as possible and gas fees low. So that's why the proof of stake model is important. Theta has a video streaming background in 4K 360 VR, and then we pivoted to blockchain. I'm lucky to have one of our partners on with us. Dan, I'll have you kick off introductions today.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Andrea, for sharing all that. So as Andrea mentioned, we are a Theta partner. I'm one of the founders of a company called Replay, which also operates the Rewarded TV streaming service. Our business and kind of the entire Replay concept is simply focused on driving transparency in video distribution. By way of background, I've spent kind of 15 years building companies as a startup founder in the content distribution and monetization landscape. The last, prior to Replay and Rewarded TV, spent 7 years building direct-to-consumer streaming apps at our company, at a previous company called Power.tv, which sold to BitCentral, one of the kind of leading providers of turnkey OTT apps. So helped power and launch hundreds of streaming services across market-leading platforms like Roku, Fire TV, Vizio, et cetera, as well as dozens of fast channels. And really, wanted to start Replay because of a problem that we saw that seemed kind of pretty rampant across the board in video distribution, which is the lack of transparency and sometimes really painful long payment cycles. So yeah, been working on Replay for a couple of years and just excited to talk about where we're at today.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Bill, why don't you go next?
Yeah, hi, Bill Drolet, Chief Revenue Officer for Aggero. Aggero is a video listening technology solution, and also a creator marketplace. So we use our technology to listen to all video, whether it's paid or organic, with creators and brands, and use AI technology to pull out incredible insights that can help drive business outcomes. And also utilize the technology to source the best creators for the best brands. And I look forward to discussing Web3 and rights management today.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here today to touch on the AI piece, which is so important as we have these Web3 discussions. Thanks for joining. Hey, Mehmet, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Mehmet. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of rlaxx as well as Foxum. I start with the later. We created around 11, 12 years ago Foxum, a company, one of the early companies in the world of the CTV OSs, and which we recently merged with our new holding company called Season. So, and we created around 3 or 4 years ago, roughly, rlaxx TV, which is our own AVOD and FAST service. And based off of that, we venture now into the world of Web3, NFTs, blockchain, etc., and are working on creating a solution that could benefit filmmakers and consumers alike.
Thank you. And, I want to call out today while we talk about these technologies, it would be helpful if all of you identify and share with everyone, how do you market the company? Because I think it is interesting, Mehmet, I noticed on your website, there is no mention of Web3 and blockchain. And I think that's really important as we try to push any kind of innovative technology. But I just want to bring up that topic. Let's thread that into today's conversation because I think it's helpful. When is it important to call out the Web3 technology? Likely more on the B2B side than the B2C side is what we found, I think, collectively. So with that, Mehmet, why don't you kick us off with, if you could share an example, maybe a specific use case from your company of just how Web3 has been applied and really down to even a logistical perspective and how you came across the technology. Was it by nature that you're a Web3 company, or did you discover that this technology was a tool?
No, yeah, let me actually say one thing. The reason why we have not publicly announced the Web3 part of it is because we saved the public announcement actually for the upcoming CES in Las Vegas next month.
Oh, exciting.
So, yeah, exactly. So trust me, around after that, before or after, you will start hearing rlaxx cinema and
Cool.
more and more in the media and about what we do. But to answer your question, so how did we end up at Web3 and blockchain, etc.? Well, we are naturally, as I said in the introduction, we are naturally coming from the CTV-OS playground. Evolving from there into the AVOD fast service, because that meant a few years ago that that's the way to monetize the CTV OSs along with fast channels and content, etc. Now, having a deeper look into the Web3 and blockchain ecosystem around 4 or 5 years ago, we saw that actually most of the technology that was available back then and most of it today would be a great tool to solve some immediate problems that we see with the market overall. Just like Dan mentioned in the intro, one of the biggest issues that we wanted to solve was the film distribution mechanisms. It just, everyone knows there is a few players who are vertically dominating certain spheres, who basically determine how and which kind of content is run, which is absolutely unfair for filmmakers and especially for independent filmmakers. So what we started doing now with a concrete example you asked me for, we created a brand called rlaxx Cinema, which basically allows filmmakers to directly distribute to the end consumers or to the viewers. We think that Web3 and blockchain specifically as a technology has a lot of advantages. And one of these advantages is through the direct sales opportunity, we basically get rid of unnecessary intermediaries. And that results in a higher revenue share from the overall cake for the actual filmmaker. But that also at the end of the day, and that results in a better or a more affordable prices for end consumers. And when I think about Web3, and we, maybe we are all aligned on that, Web3 can have different meanings for different stakeholders. But for me, Web3 means, or one of the fundamental beliefs behind Web3 is that everyone needs to get a positive outcome out of it. The makers, the creators, the OSs in between, and at the end of the day, for the first time in OTT, the viewers that actually trade their time to spend time in our ecosystems. And that's what our fundamental belief is, and that's some of the things that we put behind rlaxx Cinema.
That's great. Yeah, by nature, I've found the best way to describe Web3 technologies. It allows for fragmented workflows or systems or relationships to be more intimate, to be more direct and transparent. Dan, I think that's a good segue to talk a little bit about rewarded TV. You have a very interesting perspective on how you're working directly with consumers or helping creators, like I know Rob Feldman worked directly with consumers and create a more intimate relationship. I know me as a user of rewarded TV, like I feel like I have a more direct relationship with you as a streamer based off like curation and library. So I'd love for you to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I agree with a lot of, basically everything that Mehmet shared. And I think we see the world really similarly. I think what Web3 allows is for content owners to get closer to their customers, right, at the end of the day. And that ultimately can provide a better outcome. I think the reason the way we think about kind of end users and consumers that are watching content on rewarded TV, is they're obviously, being basically being rewarded for their time in our community, but also for contributing back to driving awareness and discovery of content on the service. So really kind of building an ecosystem where fans and content owners can interact more regularly and actually provide value to each other, I think was really, really important. We think that can take a lot of different forms of ways. I mean, you mentioned kind of Rob Feldman and Psycho KO. That was an exciting project where essentially, an NFT project that had, a fan base, an active fan base, wanted to kind of build an animated build an animated series, was able to do so through digital collectibles on the service. And that's now a live pilot, and which we, if you haven't seen yet, go check it out. And now is building another community simply just around kind of this new piece of content that was created. As far as like, and that's kind of net new brand IP that's kind of come into the world. With other content owners, that are well-established partners that we have, like, let's say Yu-Gi-Oh from Konami, right, which is one of the biggest anime series in the world. The value proposition is different. The content is there, but how do you actually build and talk to a community around that content? So as you're watching Yu-Gi-Oh episodes on our service, you're earning badges, you're unlocking new content. So we've really built a gamification engine around that system. So really, I think, we're still discovering and learning every day about all the different ways that content owners can interact with their community. But that's kind of the goal of the ecosystem, at least at the rewarded TV level. And at the replay level, which is really just kind of the core blockchain for tracking video distribution, which powers all that activity. The visibility, the idea is just provide transparency into content consumption across any platform. And I think that, we're, the content world continues to be, more and more fragmented, right? In many ways, content is being leveraged, from the shortest form on social media to the longest form on some of these streaming services. I think there's, thousands of fast channels now, countless tens of thousands of video on demand movies available, just being distributed everywhere. And someone's got to make sense of that and make it easier for the content owner to understand how they're monetizing, what their most valuable channels are, and give them kind of a point of view around their business that's a little bit easier to manage if this whole ecosystem is going to continue to scale and accelerate. So yeah, hopefully that helps. But our view is blockchain simply provides transparency, and that transparency becomes the foundation for a lot of different exciting things.
Yeah, definitely. I know in my OTT sales career, it was all about owning your audience, own your audience, but really you rely on so many vendors to own your audience. And what Rob Feldman did, he's a comic book artist, and through digital collectibles, an NFT is really like a digital contract between one or two or more parties. And so Rob created a direct relationship with his fan base, aggregated them, quantified them, and was able to fundraise for his new pilot that brought together back together the Napoleon Dynamite cast. And it's a really cool story. Now, Bill, I think it's a nice segue for you to talk about Aggero a little bit. Owning your audience and understanding your audience is so important and key to any successful direct-to-consumer streaming strategy, whether that's OTT or even publishers. And so I'm curious to have you share a little bit more with everybody here today on the significance of understanding the community, the patterns, and the reality of how complex that is and the solutions Aggero addresses there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, we're utilizing our technology to listen to what's happening in streaming. And, a use case is working with Estee Lauder, who leverages a lot of content creators to showcase their different products. And they're paying a lot of money for some very big influencers to do the product placement and demos and things like that. And then what they're really measuring is media metrics like concurrent viewers or impressions, engagement rate. Where we take it to the next level is, AI can do what humans can't as far as volume. So, for example, if Estee Lauder has 25 creators and there's 700 hours of content that's been delivered and talked about, our technology is actually listening to both sides of the conversation, both the streamer as well as the audience, their reaction, their sentiment. We set some top moments and then digest that. And the AI tool basically summarizes exactly what happened, what the outcome is, recommendations, and you can trigger off of positive sentiment, negative sentiment. So it helps not only the marketing side of the business, but it also helps inform the product. Like if there's things that the audience does not like about the packaging or about moisture or something along those lines, they get that, they have that data to have actionable next steps. And that really, if you think about it, that's where AI comes in as a very valuable tool for humans to move much faster, to process data, make decisions, and continue to be productive. So I don't see it eliminating people. I just think it's kind of like humans getting free steroids with technology. And I think that really helps all of them to the next level.
Definitely. It's a tool. And I think when you try to replace AI with real work, that's when it falls short. And people familiar using AI can see that. It's when you use it as a tool, an assistant, a powerhouse, accelerator, steroid, like you said, that it really benefits this entire ecosystem. I'd imagine that your clients, are able to, for the first time, almost quantify engagement in a different way, or quantify, those community elements that we all know as streaming providers are super key, and community drives so much, but it's very difficult from just a consumption perspective to actually quantify that. And so does Aggero, help quantify like what the ROI is maybe for chat tools or bells and whistles or in stream shopping? I'm curious how your customers are responding.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the brand side, especially in consumer packaged good and beauty, they're definitely integrating their brand teams. On the gaming side, the game developers are using our technology to track gameplay and community development, right? So they're seeing how the community, for example, we're working with World of Tanks, and their community team is constantly tracking their new releases and the new features of the games. And when they see a reaction that's negative in all the chats about, how hard a particular level of the game is, they can optimize their game for the next release. So there's actionable insights, both from a product perspective and then from a marketing perspective. So really next level insights, if you will, which really helps drive those business outcomes.
That's interesting. And one more question for you. I'm curious just how you see, I know it's a loaded question, but I have to ask, how do you see AI evolving, in the next 12, 24, 24 months and 5 years, for Aggero specifically, or really from a data and analytics perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, it's what we call it AI 1.0. I mean, I think right now, from everything we're seeing, the technology continues to improve itself. So I think it's, I look at the next 12 to 18 months, just companies utilizing it properly, and keeping the bad actors from utilizing it for fraud. But I think it's just going to create speed and velocity for everyone to move quicker, to understand data, to empower humans to do more from a creativity and a business model standpoint. So that's how I'm seeing it today with the early read on it. Like, we integrated AI into our video listening solution 8 months ago, and it's pretty incredible. We can keep adding new features, live features where you can go into the dashboard and actually start asking questions. Then it's summarizing, hundreds of hours of comments and making recommendations that humans need to review, but it's based on, the sentiment and the amount of data it's reading. And it's incredible how accurate it is. So I just see it evolving into a power tool for everybody.
That's great. It's exciting. I know I get really excited about hearing about new ways to use it. So let's ask a more broad question. Anybody feel free to jump in, but I'm curious to, be really practical and ask, what are some of the challenges that you faced implementing blockchain, and how maybe did you get through those obstacles, or what was the benefit to get through those obstacles? And I'll open that up for anybody to chime in.
Happy to kind of kick things off. I mean, I think that the challenge is just kind of coming from the video world and kind of entering to the blockchain space is just kind of learning everything, right? I mean, there's a big learning curve in blockchain. I mean, not to kind of shamelessly plug Theta here, but our kind of process was made much easier by partnering with a level 1 blockchain like Theta that had a community that fit our kind of general thesis, right? And kind of really, I think and did and still does see the world very similarly in terms of, how you go to market with blockchain for entertainment. And we were able, thankfully, to really lean on the resources of the Theta team. So that's maybe an easy answer.
I appreciate that.
We didn't plan that, but yeah, it was, I think there's a significant learning curve. I think it's one of the challenges for sure in thinking about consumers and Web3, to Mehmet's point, and how, they plan on kind of announcing things down the road. It's like, how do you almost take the Web3 difficult pieces away from the consumer? At the end of the day, it's a streaming service that functions a different way, and should have its own value prop. And then kind of Web3 is more like the how, right, than the what. So anyway, if that helps.
It is, and I appreciate that. Mehmet, I'll let you go next. I just wanted to chime in. That's very much Theta's focus is, I think a misconception is you have to be a Web3 company to work with in Web3. And we're helping companies lean in. Like, there's ways we plug in with Google Cloud, AWS, existing workflows. And I just want to call that out in the industry. I think it's a big misconception that you have to really jump or leap ahead and take risk by implementing these technologies, when there's very practical ways to lean into them. So I appreciate that, Dan. But Mehmet, please.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. To just echo off of what Dan said, and also you just said now, is I think what the biggest challenges we've seen, I think there are two big fundamental differences in terms of challenges that we have seen. The first one is unfortunately, in some parts of the world, still ongoing misconception when we use these kind of buzzwords: blockchain, Web3, they're very they're not by everyone already accepted technologies. Let me put it in this way. This has caused for us on the OTT side of things some challenges on how we could integrate this even faster. First of all, we need to make something mainstream to be accepted, but we are also aware we need to start somewhere to make it accepted. And then that's where I draw the line to what Dan just said is the fundamental idea of Web3 is the transparency and the decentralization. I think all of us are more aligned on this. And all the other technologies or phrases like blockchain, etc., are for us a tool, a technology that should support it. Now, in the OTT industry, what we've seen over the centuries is, if we're really honest to ourselves, since the invention of TV, all the way almost, I don't know how many years back, 70, 80 years back, we still do the same thing. We consume content. It hasn't changed. The fundamental thing about the TV or the offerings hasn't changed. Now, for the very first time after the internet connection, we have the chance, and that's what makes us so excited about the whole thing, is we have the chance to faster integrate modern technology into the TV device or into the set-top box. And one thing of that is how can we make sure that everyone benefits from this new technology and not only a certain click. I think to get this message over to everyone, to make everybody understand that by choosing to opt for a certain provider, there is actually something in for everyone. I think that's the biggest challenge we have seen. But that goes back to the fundamental idea of blockchain and Web3, that it should be not managed by a single source or party, but it could create something bigger when everybody plays their role in it. And I think we need to still find our ways and the right amount of salt, let's say it this way, that it makes sense for everyone in the TV business.
Definitely. I think that's something I talk about often in my meetings with executives, teaching them about this space and demystifying the technology is, studio executive might be traditionally very fearful of this, thinking about more transparency or losing control, when in reality, it actually can give them more opportunity for monetization to better understand their consumer, depend on less in between people, intermediaries. Oh, I have not had coffee yet today. And I think that's a big misconception, that Web3 really does offer trustless relationships to work and to allow for everybody to win. It's not that it's taking back control. Yes, it's part of that for the creator and the consumer, but it's really a solution that everybody wins, and there's outcome that benefits everybody.
Yeah, I'll have to, just one thing on Web3 in the gaming space is very interesting.
Yes.
We help a lot of these Web3 games, prepare for launch with insights on the communities that would be, similar to try to activate and try their game. And what we've seen a lot in 2023 is there is a lot of negative sentiment towards a Web3 game, even though it's a game, right? Like, it happens to be on Web3, where the promise is to have more flexibility, more one-on-one and commerce opportunities for everybody. But there's still the perception, like, some hardcore mainstream gamers don't want to hear about Web3. They're against it. They think NFTs are BS, and they're starting to learn as well. So some of these Web3 gaming companies are starting to drop taking Web3 out of their promotion, and then it's just a game. And we've seen that work with different creators. If they're just promoting a game and the game's cool and they like it, they're good with it. And then eventually maybe they'll announce, that it's actually Web3 and it's not so bad, right? So it is very interesting. Web3 is still not demystified, and there's a lot to learn there about the value of it, and try to take away the negative stereotype.
Yeah, agreed. We just did a project with Taste of Home, a very traditional, magazine, now also a digital magazine. But the project that we did with them, very calculated. We did not call the NFTs their recipes. We did not call them NFTs. We called them a digital recipe, because that audience, what we knew, would not be interested at all in a digital collectible. And we talk about this a lot in this space that, okay, don't call them NFTs, call them digital collectibles, but I still think that has, it can spook folks out who don't understand the technology. But, the funny thing is we actually do use a lot of this technology day to day, and we don't realize it's happening, whether that's, going to a Dodgers game, only when they play the Giants do I go see the Dodgers, but, I have to transfer tickets. That's the same workflow as an NFT. It can't sit in somebody else's ownership without transferring it. I can't copy, screenshot. So yes, you might be able to right click, save an NFT in the art, but that will not scan to get you in the door at the venue. So NFTs, just a good call out, another 101 kind of line I like to explain to people on this technology. It's important to call this tech what it is. So not an NFT, but a ticket, a streaming pass, a badge, whatever it might be. I think that's where we really are in the midst of trying to get through so that consumers can focus on the product versus like being curious about what's under the hood, where really they don't care if it's a great product. Dan, on that note, I want you to talk a little bit about the ways that rewarded TV is incentivizing behavior. And I almost want you, answer how you'd like, but I almost want you to answer from like a consumer's perspective. Like if I'm tuning into rewarded TV, because, I've sold OTT infrastructure for most of my career, and we would have so many questions of, packaging monetization and how to incentivize purchasing behavior or engagement. And it's very complex, and sure, it could be possible, but at what cost? And the ROI is difficult. But I want you to talk about some of the exciting ways rewarded TV is doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to gamification, and I think it works. This works equally as well for an animated series like Yu-Gi-Oh! As it does to a media publisher or news publisher like CoinDesk, right? At the end of the day, right? I mean, presumably, certainly all the content providers on our service, and most content providers are there to build an audience, whether you're starting with one fan or 1,000 or a million, right? Doesn't really matter. You start somewhere. And providing the tools for that content owner to be able to understand who their most engaged community members and viewers are, I think is a really important and missing piece. And so, at Rewarded TV, we've built a framework essentially that ties, it's gamification, it's leaderboards, it's badges, it's milestones, it's watch parties, it's kind of exclusive access to content for being a super fan. So all of those things in a toolkit that, again, really simply boils down to how are you engaging, where and when. And that does create opportunities for both content owners as well as the consumer. So for the consumer, it's about kind of unlocking these collectibles and badges and the game part of it. But there are really exciting tie-ins with our content partners that have run contests to win actual things. For instance, like if you have a conference you're hosting, and you're the most engaged user or viewer on a service, you might get a really expensive conference pass for being the most engaged, right? So those kinds of activations that are really, really fun, are really different in terms of what we see in the broader streaming landscape, but provide a lot of value, build a lot of stickiness, build a strong relationship, and really, again, all boil down to just tracking where and when someone is viewing, and then kind of rewarding that behavior. So in the example of, again, I'll just kind of go back to the one that was top of mind with Yu-Gi-Oh! You watch season 1, you get a season 1 badge. You watch season 2, you get a season 2 badge. Get all those badges, you get something even cooler. So building that kind of framework, I think, is really powerful. And then allowing brands to almost dictate, use their editorial, their kind of editorial calendar to dictate what the perks around that would be. We're kind of pretty hands off there. I mean, we have ideas, but we allow brands to really jump in and define what that what that experience is. From kind of the OTT infrastructure hat, putting that on, it also allows you to kind of have viewers install your app on a new service, right? If you want to unlock the Roku badge, watch you have to watch on Roku or install the Roku app. You do the same thing for Fire TV or anywhere where you could effectively monetize your user better. So we've seen a lot of success with that. And so it's the combination of content related gamification and platform related gamification that we've seen work really well.
Yeah, and it's interesting I want to call out for any content owners in the space, with rights and distribution deals that you may be locked up on. I've talked to a content creator with very well-known IP that was locked in a major streaming service. So they couldn't distribute the content, but they could sell it a la carte transactional video on demand. Mm-hmm. Now, selling the episodes, they were not allowed to sell it as a season or market it as a season. But now we're exploring, okay, well, what if each episode that you do buy, you get a badge for that episode, incentivizing, if you unlock 11 episodes from season 1, you get a sweatshirt, or season 2, and you can start blending these kind of fan loyalty type activations. And it's just interesting. It now opens up a revenue stream and fan engagement for monetization, where they would have thought they maybe had to wait till their streaming deal with the big service expired. So there's just a lot of unique ways to almost get through some of the areas you may be stuck with creative ways to distribute, monetize, and go through some of the things Dan said. Mehmet, I'm curious, with building out what seems to be relatively new with the announcement coming at CES, which is very exciting. If you could shed some light on how rlaxx TV incorporates Web3 behind the scenes. You called out a really important part that user-friendly is so key here. And so maybe, tell a story or an example of how you've identified how to implement it on the back end and make sure it translates to easy experience on the front end.
Well, it's actually not only the Web3 part, it's also in relation to AI, what Bill just said early on in the discussion. So how we look at it is the following. We use Web3, blockchain, AI to make a product that serves the end consumer. That's the idea behind it, very simply speaking. And to give you a concrete example, how we do something. For example, how did we integrate AI in our OS already that then serves as the backbone or infrastructure for rlaxx Cinema, which will be then a blockchain-based Web3 product. The TV set itself, without going too far, but the TV set itself as a hardware product has many disadvantages. It's not as fast nor as good as a laptop or as a mobile phone. So we're always limited in hardware specifications and in hardware opportunities. Why is that important? Of course, it's not that important for things we do at the back end part of it all, before we actually stream the content to the TV. But the usage of the TV has a fundamental impact on the success of Web3 products on the actual OTT universe, in my opinion. One example is the voice control. Now, I don't know how many of you are using Siri or Alexa or whatever these things are called from different groups out there, but all of them have their little bugs and all of them have their little issues. And integrating that on a TV has never really caused, and maybe we need to speak to Bill about it if they track this, but has never really caused an increase of usage of voice command for TV, at least not from what we hear from the market, because it has multiple problems. If you're a non-native English speaker like myself, we sometimes even fight with these voice controls because they don't understand how we say certain words. Now, when you put AI into the loop, and that's how we integrated it, we connected it to our voice engine. And now, every time I open my TV using my own OS, it understands, this is Mehmet, has this type of an accent, he uses to say these words in this kind of ways. I know what he wants the next time when he turns on the TV and wants to watch content. So integrating this, trying to solve a problem that's so easy actually to understand, that creates an easy user experience for the end consumer, and connecting that product type or that feature to Web3 and blockchain is actually what we try to achieve with rlaxx. Then we connect the recommendation engine to the smart AI function, and we then start to disaggregate content and show the content that we believe would be suitable for me in this case. And we have integrated behind the scenes, maybe as a last point, we didn't want to call it like that, as you said, NFTs, but we basically have box office tickets, right? So all we do is we basically take the NFT infrastructure, we sell this ticket as an NFT to the end consumer. That particular person can choose how to pay for it via credit card, fiat currency, or if okay in that specific country via cryptocurrency, and is able to resell this ticket, which then creates an ongoing revenue stream for the ticket owner, for the content creator, and for us as a company, because we will obviously then be a part of the revenue scheme over there. But that's like, you know, in really 2-3 minutes of how I can explain it without going into too much detail, but that's how we feel the things are connected.
Good. Well, I know we're at time, but that's a nice way to wrap, Mehmet. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mehmet. Thank you, Dan, and everybody tuning in, joining us. You know, to contact us, I believe in your speaker profiles in the speaker tab of the event, it has our contact info. And I know I speak for the whole panel here today that we encourage questions and curiosity in this space. That's what we're here for. And we look forward to having conversations like this in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.